we'll do that. I think for the regional, we appreciated that much of the things are happening at national level, that there's a lot that will happen at national level that will impact on the regional level, but also that there are other things that happen at the regional level, which are there, which will also be able to help with the national level to prosper. So the first thing was to define what we mean by regional. I think, because I think that is the missing link. Sometimes we only define regional at continental level, and we forget the sub-regional levels as well, and how that impacts what happens at national level, because most of the national governments will like to report to their sub-regional economic levels before they actually get even to the continental level. So that was the gap that we were talking about as well, and saying how do we fill that? And I think much of the things that came out in that was we will look at what are the key issues, for example, that happen at regional level. So the whole issue around regional integration is very important, because we find that while the goals might look national, there are very many things that will affect people at regional level in terms of how they are defined geographically and in terms of even issues like peace. So how do we manage that? So we feel that the regional level is very important, but I think we grappled so much with what kind of structure, and I think that will link to this. I'm not going through the questions there, but what kind of structure will help us then at regional level, from civil society perspective, bring that technical expertise back to the national, so that we can actually tie out what is happening at national level and bring it at regional level and then influence the global. So what kind of structure? I think it's one of the issues maybe that needs to be looked at further, to say what kind of structure from civil society will be able to help us fill that gap at regional level.
Thank you very, very much, and thank you for keeping to the time. And again, we'll capture the other things as well that came up in the discussion. Can I ask, are there people who report from the working group? Can you please come up to the front? And I'm actually going to challenge you to think while others are speaking about what you're going to say, because I'm going to ask you to not repeat anything that's already been said, but just add to the discussion, please, just so that we can get the maximum out of these interaction that we have. Yeah, Anna, come on, start. Which group are you reporting on?
I was in the UN group.
Okay. Okay. So the UN Act.
Yes, actually, it's the UN Advocacy Group. Good morning, everybody. So it was a very interesting discussion. Many colleagues had, I think, very important things to say, but I think the main thing that we have to keep in mind is that for UN advocacy, we don't have, we really must not be gatekeepers. We have to concentrate into that. It is important actually that this group is not only New York level, that it is not only in English, but in Espanol, en Français, and many other languages that I don't speak and that I would love to. We really have to avoid to be gatekeepers, as I said, because we need to be ambitious. We had many colleagues that really highlighted the need to be ambitious for our UN advocacy group. And actually, one of our colleagues also shared his vision of the high-level political forum as a window of opportunities for CSOs. We really need to be in this process as it is ongoing, and we really have to be into the concept and the conceptualization. I think that is actually very important, and our focus is that we need to keep our other, not only the HLPF, but also Human Rights Commission. We need also to keep an eye on what's going on with the climate agreements for your pleasure, Sarah, and COP21 agreements that will come in Paris in December. So we really have to fight and have also a place in many agencies. And we have also, and I think I'm going to finish with this because it is essential, that we keep in mind that we're dealing with member states and that they're not going to cooperate with implementation with us. And we have to push for this, and this is essential for the UN advocacy group. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Who can report back from monitoring and accountability group? Okay.
Okay, so we were talking about monitoring and accountability. What would success look like? We thought that one of the major elements of success was collaboration between civil society on data and monitoring, perhaps in the form of some kind of platform where we share data and monitoring strategies. Another element of success was around mobilization and civil society pressure on governments. And another element was making sure that all these processes and platforms are very inclusive and participatory and all people's views can be heard. Around the gaps, we had many, so I'm going to kind of try and edit them a little bit as I go along. One was around private sector accountability. I felt that was a big gap that needs to be filled. The second was around accountability infrastructure. The infrastructure and framework in the follow-up and review section of the final document is very vague at the moment, so there's a lot of work to be done to flesh that out. There's another around systemic issues. How do we track the systemic issues like the policy coherence, the impact of developed countries' policies overseas, for example? Those things are quite difficult to track, but there's a real need for it. And then lastly, on the gaps, it's about how do we overcome this kind of technocratic approach to monitoring and move more towards political accountability and an accountability culture. And what we can do to help. We talked about collaboration and sharing experience. What help do we need? We talked about capacity building being a massive need. On our risks and concerns, a big one was that governments don't necessarily give CSO or citizen data much credibility. The second, we talked about the dangers of a monolithic approach, and we talked about needing a pluralistic approach, the risks of having a kind of over-designed space that would be alienating to the local level, and that's related to kind of potential lack of ownership at the national or local level. And lastly, another risk and concern was SDG fatigue from CSOs and governments. I'm sure some of us already started feeling this.
Thank you very much. From the national level, who's going to?
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Lundy with Plan International, and I beg forgiveness of all the people in my group as I'm not able to share back everything and only two. So what success would look like at the national level, many of us spoke about an integrated plan and a translation exercise essentially done by government and civil society about what policies and what laws already exist within that country that relate to what the SDG promises and identifying them through the gaps that still need to be worked on for advocacy. Linked to that, there was a goal or a success would look like every group, every civil society organization, but also labor unions, teachers, other groups that maybe we haven't worked with before, knowing what the goals have promised for their issues and their needs, so that collectively, as civil society within the national context, we're making sure that all SDG goals are being met, because all the different sectors of society and different groups of civil society organizations are advocating for those issues across the goals. Our second question focused on how an international campaign or an international coalition could support national level work. And I think we talked a little bit about structures, but left that mostly to focus on what would be helpful, and then defining what the structures are after that, right? But what's going to give us what we need. And we talked especially about awareness raising and communications tools to be able to do that kind of national and local level awareness raising with governments and with civil society. So providing that kind of media or other sort of tools that could be used. We also spoke about the need for best practices and evidence sharing across an international campaign, so that, for example, if our colleagues in India are being very successful with something, that can be then shared across different countries, so that they can be using those kinds of tools. So not sort of dictating what the strategies will be at national level, but definitely sharing what some successes and learning has been. Thanks.
On the outreach group, yes.
Okay, I'm going to try not to repeat things that have already been said. So The first thing we talked about is focus on who's already doing work related to the SDGs and what successes are already happening, and leveraging those organizations to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts or reinventing the wheel. And specifically work being done by faith-based organizations, environmental groups, and groups in developing countries that have already been organized locally. The second is related to speaking a new language that people, the average citizens, can relate to more easily. So the first being asking what people need, and then using those responses to connect back to the SDGs from those responses. Second thing is leveraging what people are currently calling it, and using that language to raise more awareness. Thirdly, to simplify, using words and images that are very easy to comprehend, and then to get into the complexities of the development agenda once the conversation is already happening. And finally, to find the local in the global, to be able to connect with people and talk to them about things that they can relate to. The third that we talked about was reaching the maximum number of people. So in the private sector, that involves working with small, medium enterprises and trade unions. And at the government level, working with ministries, and so getting government accountability in reaching out to people as well. So you have ministries for water, for education, and so leveraging those bodies and making sure that they are aware of the goals and how their work relates to that. In terms of reaching the maximum number of youth, we talked about getting the SDGs in schools, whether it's formally through the curriculum or with guest speakers. And finally, getting the SDGs in local elections, so getting mayors to talk about the agenda, but also using the SDGs to make sure that mayor platforms during elections are in line with the global agenda. And then the last thing about keeping it inclusive, some of the groups that we identify that might be a bit sidelined right now are faith-based organizations, environmental groups, women's groups, the elderly, the disabled, and generally the most vulnerable and excluded. I'm sure I probably missed a couple things that's in my group, but thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to try to summarize that, obviously, because it's only a partial picture of all the things that have been discussed, but I have a feeling that there were very, very, very good discussions. We would like to invite everyone who would like to share their notes from the group discussions to send them to us and to this email over there. And also, trying to understand the message.
No, I'm not sending any message, so there's
Okay.
nothing to do. That's smiling at you, Sarah.
Anyway, so but clearly, I think what comes out is that we need to discuss more. Do we want to have like a more issue-focused, or thematic focused approach? Can we find something that's cross-cutting enough that we can all collaborate and rally around? How to make sure there's no cherry picking on the bills? How can we play a role there? Lots about, of course, building capacity, really sharing best practice and continuing to learn from each other. I think we need to keep in mind that there's been a lot of great collaboration already happening, so it's continuing to harness that and bring in more people in and identifying where who are the groups who are not necessarily in the discussions right here, and that's I think what we all together here need to really kind of keep in mind as we go forward. It's not it's not for a small group to take these things forward, but we really rely on all of you. And we here in the room are definitely the most privileged ones that are able to have this discussion here, but they're definitely not representing everyone. There's lots of people who are not in the room. So what we will do is that we'll take these things back and feed them into some of the discussions that we're having. And we would really, really encourage everyone to kind of participate through this online tool, again, realizing that this is not, doesn't enable everyone to participate. So we'll have to, all of us, kind of go out there and bring other voices into the discussion in a different way as well. And then, as we continue trying to flesh out some of these options about from what we hear from everyone, from what it is that this could could look like as we move forward, so that it is most effective and really achieves the most impact to the people that we want to serve. Sorry that we're running over. Really, and back to you.
Great, fantastic, great, thank you so much. And round of applause. So just to remind you that we still have colleagues online, still being live stream. We still have a lot of Twitters, and I know that our colleagues in the overflow room are clapping with us by pressing the button in Google. So we're still, so these applauses here and claps are being extended over to the overflow room. Thank you, Ross Bailey, for leading on clapping. So moving on, we really have run out of time. Our agenda here is delayed by at least 20 minutes, but we still want to share with you some ideas that have come up regarding naming and branding. Again, I want to really say in bold and highlight and underline that no decision on this has been taken. Decisions are going to be taken as we move on, as people start joining and becoming members of this initiative. That's where all of these decisions are going to be taken. But we wanted to share with you some initial ideas on that. So I'm going to call on Hannah and Hanson from, I don't know, is it Concord or Civic or something? I don't know. Anyway, we have many hats here. But she's also been joined up by colleagues from MNC Saatchi. And hopefully, how long do we have? 1 minute? 10 minutes? Thank you.
Yeah.
Over to you, Hannah.
Hi everyone. We thought that it would be a good way to end this, think about things that I think are kind of fun, a little bit of like, what's in the name, right? What can we call ourselves? Can we create some kind of identity? Mostly maybe because there's right now a lot of confusion. I don't know how many names on this I've heard just here today, and it helps in many ways. So I guess over the months, a few people have said, well, let's sit down, let's see if we can come together under a name and something, a logo that binds us together. And so a working group was created, initiated by a number of colleagues that just said, oh, we can work on branding. We have some expertise in that. And that's exactly how all this work so far has come about. Someone said, I want to do this, build a working group, and done it. So this is the result of that and the brilliant minds of MNC Saatchi. So what we want to do is present some of the options that this working group together with Saatchi have developed, present them to you, see kind of what the mood is, maybe take a few questions or comments, and then what we're going to do is we're going to, because we can't select something here and now, we're going to set up an online vote for this on this website that Sarah was referring to earlier. So we'll be sending around information on that, but a way for us to poll, because if you're going to we want to hear from more people than those of you that are in the room today. So I don't know if that's clear, but I think it will be more clear after you say what you have to say.
Hello. Yeah, so just to echo, Hannah, what we've got here is sort of food for thought, and thanks to the working group for giving us enough preliminary guidance to get this far. But what we'll show you are some first thoughts and ideas that sort of being designed up, in my experience, it's easier and better and quicker to design something and present something and get feedback, and then move on and sort of iterate and change rather than start with a blank sheet of paper, especially when there's this many people involved. So progress for today, actually, if everyone hates everything we've got, but you're united in that hatred, then that's progress. That's actually pretty good, because then we can go away and we know actually what you really hate and what you really don't want. So that's useful as well. I won't sort of dwell too much on the setup, because I think other people this morning have done a better job than I in talking about what this is here to do and what this agenda for the next 15 years is going to do. Holding politicians to account and ensuring that they deliver on their commitments. The one important caveat I would make before presenting any sort of branding work or identity is it's going to be those of you in the room and the constituents and movements and campaigns you represent that determines whether the next 50 years is a success or not. You know, so on the front line, holding power to account, doing what you do. The branding can't do that, but what it can do is it can hopefully help in a number of ways on communications. So Inspire United Identity can hopefully help increase the impact of individual communications and advocacy through association with existing campaigns, platforms and actions, and hopefully make the whole bigger than the sum of its parts. So there's a sort of signifier or badge to link all the different actions and campaigns that are going on through your organisations and movements. Can hopefully also create a sort of platform for United activity, so above and beyond what is already going on, some additional activity to reach new audiences or engage new generation. And then lastly, to hopefully help contribute in some small way to mobilising a range of actors. But ultimately, it's going to be what you do and what you say and how you say it that does most of the heavy lifting. And hopefully the branding will play a sort of small but important role in articulating what you stand for. Between all the organisations. What we're looking for is something that's easy to adopt and adapt, that's simple to understand everywhere, and that's meaningful. And I've got 5 concepts to share with you. We've taken 3 colours that are not currently associated with a single organisation like the UN. That's quite important for the feedback that we've got from the working group, and also reflects the fact that different agendas are coming together: climate, poverty, human rights, justice. Planet, poverty and people really coming together. So we've got a palette that hopefully reflects that. A colour scheme nodding to some of the organisations and campaigns that got us here, such as Beyond 2015, nodding towards some colour schemes by Global Goals and Action 2015. So the first name that would be suggested is Vision 2030. So what I'll talk through is the name, sort of logo, sort of colour scheme, and then that sort of interchangeable, and then how that might work on some collateral, just to give you an idea, and then I'll put them all on the slides at the end. So this is the sort of logo, and the idea is that it's sort of quite clear and broad and encompasses lots of the organisations, sort of a literal kaleidoscope coming together, different movements to create a unified global whole. And again, the colour scheme nodding towards the sort of green global goals, the red Beyond 2015, the slightly sort of muted orange Beyond 2015. And the end line that we've got here, I think was suggested by the working group, is all people, all countries, all together. So name the visual really signifying the end point, 2030, and the end line really focusing on inclusivity and how we're going to get there. And then just some examples of how it might work across the collateral. Obviously, you've got an obligatory toe tag that you now must have by law. Might work on and that's just a small event there that was just and then one of the tests is will it work in a sort of small size. So that's Vision 2030. The next idea is United Action 2030. And again, the same colour scheme is being used throughout, very simple, flexible to the point. About collective action and solidarity. So the visual brings together the U and the A of United Action, and some strong political chain. And the other one there is United Voice for Global Change. And again, a lot of these end lines you can sort of change out, and some of these will work with multiple different end lines. So that's sort of for lots of debate in the coming weeks. Again, on the collateral. There was a little whistle there for that take back. Feedback noted, thank you. So I'll look at these. Our World 2030. So this is a sort of icon, circular fingerprint icon representing sort of people and planet. So think of the individual and the globe of the whole planet. I think that we've kept the colours on this very neutral for the time being. I think we do lots of play around with the colours and trying to integrate the different 3 colours or whatever colour we go with. But we quite like this as an icon, so we just kept it in and sort of used it for the time being. So our World 2030 will be like that, and the end line or an end line underneath. Keep going, what's on target. And then the fourth thing is just 2030, so quite stripped back. There'll know there'll be lots of 20, 30 brands. I think there already are. And the logic here is to try and sort of own the day, have some other brands, a bit like the Olympic movements do, or sort of 1984, perhaps slightly more hopeful and optimistic like the Olympics, dystopian, 1984. The strength really is its flexibility, so it's sort of stripped back, and it still allows you to overtly hero different campaigns, so you can have different campaigns underneath it, a bit like Action 2015, to do that. Probably it's been known as the 2030 movement. And the framing here is a nod to the idea of sort of a lens focusing on the date, so sort of scrutiny and focus, sort of, I guess, sort of, I don't know whether we do this anymore, so it's like the old-fashioned sort of lens or zooming in. And so the idea being to more subtly say something similar to Vision 2030. We've got two end lines that we've put onto here. First, change tomorrow today. And the second, leave no one behind, which quite a few people quite like. We've also included the fingerprint here again. It's a global fingerprint. I feel that works quite well as a summary of bringing together of people. I'll skip through these pictures, I think you get a gist. I think this is the final, the fifth one, Destination 2030. So, pretty straightforward, it's an arrow, sets direction, momentum, and Live Vision 2030 can put in a range of different headlines underneath it. And the strapline there is United Voice of Global Change. So I will skip through to the slide that's got them all on. Again, just to reiterate, these are sort of food for thought to sort of throw out there so you can go away for a couple of weeks, think about what you like, what you dislike, and sort of feedback to the working group so that there's sort of clearer direction as to where you want things to go and what you feel like you need from this sort of work.
This is part of the presentation now, exactly.
What's that background?
You don't hear it? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It was not me singing, so don't get me into that.
So, Hannah, do you want to talk a little bit about how the sort of feedback's going to be collated? I'm happy to take a few questions or reflections now, but I think sort of given there's lots of people who want to get feedback from that aren't in the room and online and we're short of time, any burning questions I can ask them now, otherwise I think it's going to be an online forum that you're going to have to send us to.
Yeah, we're thinking that we can take a couple of questions now, and then because these kind of things, I'm sure you will want to look at again and think over. So we'll post it on the website and shortly and update how we'll be able to do it and make sure we get that information. So we're going to take about a 2-week time frame. Hopefully we'll be able to do some type of polling there. He said that we will take a few questions now here and a few comments, but then mostly we will set up a process to do this online. So where you will be able to vote for your favorites or add a comment.
No votes.
Poll.
Yeah.
So but we'll keep you updated on that. But any questions now or comments or brilliant ideas, please.
One thing is we are trying to distinguish our body from the United Nations as a structure that is being a little more inclusive and no centralized or government-based approach. So I wonder if we can add something that really touch people by letting them know that locality and means something. Because if we try to keep all so inclusive and we put global, in that globality people say, oh, I don't feel included in that sort of globality. So if we can add a little more touch, human touch, away from the UN sort of like a corporative way of being, and also we can make the logo a little more local, so people can put it in the village and it connects with the environment. So something more humane, because this is beautiful, but it's not telling me anything.
I wondered, is this going to be our effort to somewhat counter what we've seen coming out of Richard Curtis and the UN, which many of us object to, the kind of icons that now they've developed? I mean, will this be complementary? Will this be our effort instead of theirs? Or, I mean, what's the conversation?
Donna, do you want
Sorry, let's take two more questions. Let's take two more questions. We have two. Let's take two more. Neva, and then here.
My name is Neva. I work in the UK at the moment, but especially while I'm there. There was a point that was made during our discussion on monitoring evaluation or monitoring accountability about the real need to make sure that kind of what we're trying to do here doesn't impose or overcome the struggles that take place at the local level. So we have a really strong concern that this kind of branding is not how change takes place in the world. And I think for us to be trying to do this kind of work at this point is not hearing what's happening on the ground. And I feel like there is a really big difference between what we're trying to do as a global community and these designs, which are great, fantastic, very corporate logos that aren't meaningful and reflecting what we're trying to do.
Great, thank you.
My issue is how does all this translate? I mean, you can't just do this in English only, and we need to be looking at this as how does this look in other languages and how do people relate to it that way?
Thank you. I think that most likely the other colleagues who are raising their hands will have will have comments rather than questions. I think that the conversation that we've had in the transitional group is that we are going to put this online for comments, not voting, because voting would mean that it would be those 3 or 4 proposals, whereas comments will really enrich whatever, reframing or new ideas may come up. So that is what we are going to have online. So this is going to be posted online for comments, such as like the ones that you just made, plus other colleagues who are not here today to comment on. But I do see some hands that are existent. So let me give the hand to this colleague here, and then to Tanya, and then to Sally, and we close there. Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for this great work. I mean, it's beautiful logos. I agree with that fully. I just think that also if we are opening the floor to comments, be it here or online, it's important to start with good premises. Otherwise, we cannot have good conclusions. And I think one of the premises I find it actually wrong was we need citizens to hold our governments to account. But I would like to turn it the other way around. What do citizens need us to do? And do they need us after all?
Tanya?
Thank you very much. In the work that we've been doing so far, we've been at pains to make sure this is a people and planet agenda. And we'll only have good results for people if we're also looking at the planet. So if I may, I'd like to suggest that we have much more sort of planet or environmentally oriented, maybe a colour as well, and just something in a logo or a word.
Thank you. Last, Savio?
No, we can't hear you.
Can you use the mic?
I think Charles is wrong. I echo what Neva said, just based on the right. Secondly, I was a little confused now because I was so happy with the previous discussion where, what are you going to do, get really into action. And suddenly I see the slide, and then you're telling me that decisions are not taken. So I get a little confused where we are. And something you can just tell us, and who decides, and who even decided that we go in this process. So this is a bit of, at losing end. There's something that helped me, especially people who are, in countries, they are seeing all the things, what's happening in New York, what are these guys up to?
Shall I try and answer some of those questions? Yeah. I think the creative feedback we've got is really useful, so they need to corporate about being climate nerve, about feeling use of global and not local enough is really sort of quite tangible, useful bits of feedback, so thank you. I'll sort of take that back and wait for feedback online. I think the biggest point sounds like, I'm seeing this point about timing, and I think to answer your question about this, sorry, I don't know your name. Savio. To answer Savio's question, I think we were asked to get involved at this stage by Civicus and communications working groups. So I think sort of strategic nature and where this has come in, and if this has come in too early or not, then point well made, and we'll take your guidance on that, and we're sort of here to respond to when you need our help. And if that's too early, then that's absolutely fine. We can sort of pause and wait for a more appropriate juncture to get involved.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you, Hannah, for presenting this. I think it's a very valid question. I think that's what we mentioned before, that the transitional group was started meeting about a month ago. The thrust of our work and where we want to go with facilitating the conversation and shaping it into an initiative was presented as part of the objectives and the visions and so on. And that is, and the conversation in the breakout groups, that is the thrust of our work. I think other issues like branding and so on are important, but we first must decide on visions and so on, because that is also what's going to guide whatever name or brand or in colors that we want to use. Nevertheless, it is a very important contribution. Some ideas have been put forward here. We are going to put it online to poll and to receive all comments, so that whatever we present to you next time, we'll have much more inputs from all of you and other colleagues who are in the regions and in the countries. So with that, we close this session. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the closing, because we are far beyond the time, and we thank very much Open Foundation Society here for this period of time that they have allowed us to stay here. And I would like to call on my colleague Philip to give us a wrap up and close the session today. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon to you. Since I'm from Latin America, that's bad news for you, because wrapping up and talking shortly is not exactly one of our virtues. So, but I will try to do my best both in order to give you what or where we are, and I believe that's the most important question. We are at the beginning of a long, complex process that has to be simplified in order that we really have a leadership and a participation that is not only on a global scale. And I believe that this is exactly where we have to see that we're now going back to implement to our countries, to our regions, and what works for you at the national level. It's what is important for us to shape a global movement. And I believe that's the logic we need to have, and therefore we need ownership at all levels. And this is something, when we talk about ownership, we have 3 years now, or 5 if you want to take it, of consultations, of reaching out to the different stakeholders. Let's not forget that. That's lessons learned. That's aggregated value that we have to foster and we have to value in order that we have the possibilities to build a global movement, a global platform that feeds into especially the needs on the national level. We also believe, and this is something that I'm very grateful to hear today in the breakout session, how constructive and professionally there were inputs and very clear ideas on what are the lessons learned, what are the ideas in order to move forward. And where we are at this moment as well is that no decisions have been made. And this is very important. No decisions of the governing body, who should do what, who should lead what, no. This group right now has to lead forward in giving ideas, in giving the inputs, in order that we have the possibility to propose which is the best form of governance, who should lead it, and how should that be done. And therefore, we need the trust of you as well, the people that have been chosen to do that, in order to get your feedback and really do a work that it's based on this constructive process that has already been working for the last 3 years. The joint work in the multi-stakeholder approach. We heard several times today about including the different actors into this process. I'm all for it, but I'm all for it as well, what I have just said. Lessons learned, the process is already going on, and we need, in order to do so, structures that are practical and that are not that we create bureaucracies in order that we are 2 years from here still discussing who should do what in order to who is the leadership. No, I mean, we are all leading on this, and therefore we have a large responsibility, and I would like to finish this here. The transitional group, it's not a leadership group that will take for given that they will keep on doing that. I said to this group in the last face-to-face on our first face-to-face meeting, most probably our work will be that we will lose a lot of political momentum that all of our organizations have, because no matter what we do, there's always something missing. There's always some better idea to do it. And therefore, we have to be very serious, and we are very serious about the work that we have to do, because we have the great responsibility to present ideas to the broader community in order to take decisions. And that's where we're here for. We are open to all of you in order not only to receive inputs, hopefully to receive ideas and possibilities on how we can construct this together. For you all, thank you very much for your time. We still have a long stretch. I feel actually like a vacation, but I have been just told that as soon as we get back home, we have to start working. So the vacation will be the weekend, and on Monday, reality starts again. All of you, until that time, have a good time, a good rest, and hopefully from Monday on, start working hard again on where we are. Gracias and goodbye.
Thank you.